Every morning, Mama Crocodile would bring tasty bananas to her little Achilles for breakfast, and each time she would say in wonder, "What a big boy you're getting to be, my son, and how handsome, and what beautiful teeth you have." "Chill," Achilles would say to himself. But one morning, Achilles refused to eat. This worried Mama Crocodile. "Don't you want some tasty bananas for breakfast, hon?"
"No thanks, Mom. Today, I'd really like to eat a child."
"I'd really like to eat a child" by Sylvia and Dania. What an idea, my little Achilles. But children don't grow on banana trees, only bananas do, and that's what I have for breakfast.
"I know, but I want to eat a child."
Papa Crocodile had an idea. He ran all the way to the village and brought back a sausage as long as a truck for his son.
"No thanks, Dad. Today, I want to eat a child."
Come now, Achilles. There's no such thing as a sausage made for children."
"I know, but I want to eat a child."
Luckily, Mama and Papa Crocodile were clever.
"Our Achilles has a sweet tooth,"
they said. "Let's make him a big, yummy chocolate cake. Then he will totally forget this silly idea." And that's just what they did. The cake was magnificent. "Wow!" Achilles shouted when he saw it. He picked out a great, big piece. But then he sighed and changed his mind. "No!" Mama and Papa Crocodile were beside themselves. They cried and moaned. "What will we do? Our dear Achilles won't eat." Achilles was beginning to feel strange and rather weak all over, which is exactly what happens when you haven't eaten your breakfast.
"A nice swim would do me good,"
he thought. So he walked down to the river. There, on the riverbank, was a little girl playing by herself.
"Finally, I'm gonna eat a child."
He crept up slowly and bared his beautiful teeth like a ferocious beast ready to pounce. Oh! Look at that! It's a teeny tiny crocodile. He's awfully cute and, oh, so scrawny. He must not eat very much. Just like that, as quick as a wink, the little girl caught Achilles by the tail and tickled his belly. And then, when she'd had enough, she threw him back into the river. Achilles emerged from the river, hungrier than ever.
"Darn, I blew it."
And he ran all the way home screaming,
"Mommy, Daddy, quick! Give me some bananas! I have to grow bigger!" "Big enough to eat a child!"
We all know this story. One day, Susan B. Anthony and Cady Stanton had a tea party and realized that women couldn't vote. Then maybe you heard about Seneca Falls, where they and a bunch of other women got together and wrote a constitution that said, hey, we don't have equal rights with men, can we get that? Struggle, 19th Amendment, and boom, women have rights. Oh, and Jane Addams was there too. Feminism! This is not what happened. Sure, that was a drastically oversimplified explanation, but the names are there. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, Jane Addams, all on the top 10 list of women mentioned in the K-12 American history curriculum. Notably, all were also white and middle class. It's not that these women didn't radically change American feminism, but this popular narrative was just nowhere close to the full story. This narrative not only excludes individual non-white suffragists, but it disregards their collective experiences with the fight for the right to vote as well. When we explore women's suffrage today through a broader lens and the stories of two unsung women, we may find completely different answers about who participated in the women's suffrage movement and what they accomplished, and even if it ever ended at all. The women's suffrage movement, or what we would now call first wave feminism, spanned from 1848 to 1920 and focused mostly on winning women the right to vote. However, today it's known for being an extremely exclusive movement. Mainstream approaches to first wave feminism often lacked something called intersectionality. According to Y.W. Boston, intersectionality is when people are disadvantaged by multiple sources of oppression, their race, class, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, etc. In other words, oppression has layers, and prominent white suffragists of first-wave feminism rarely, if ever, took these layers into account. Even during the 1913 suffrage parade in D.C., which was supposed to be one of American suffrage's major accomplishments, Black suffrage groups were told by parade organizers to march to the back of the parade for fear of angering white suffragists. Gosh, for a movement so keen on winning American women's rights, its organizers seemed awfully excited to discriminate against them. Thanks, Alice Paul! Even when Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote their official history of women's suffrage and passed it around the nation, it was, and often still is, accepted as the authority on feminist history. However, their narrative cuts out most of the women of color who were instrumental to this movement. Maybe that's why we might have heard names and narratives like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, but not Dr. Mabel Pingwa Lee or Mary Church Terrell. That warped historical narrative can't paint a full picture of the importance and impact of women's suffrage then or now. So let's change that lens. In 1912, a woman helped lead a parade of almost 10,000 people for women's suffrage down the streets of New York City. Her name was Dr. Mabel Pingwa Lee. She was a tireless political advocate for women's suffrage and the rights of Chinese Americans. In addition to becoming the first Chinese woman to earn a PhD, a few years after the parade, she wrote feminist essays, gave captivating speeches against racial and gender-based discrimination, participated in competitive public speaking, aka the precursor to forensics, and was a prominent figure in the New York City suffrage movement. Oh, and she was also 16 at the time. Can somebody please tell me why my history books neglected to mention her? Dr. Lee, who immigrated from Guangzhou as a child, spoke out about women's suffrage and the rights of Chinese Americans. Lee grew up in the wake of the Chinese Exclusion Act, which barred Chinese Americans from becoming naturalized citizens or voting, in part due to the rampant discrimination and xenophobia the Chinese people faced during the early 1900s. Lee spoke out about this hatred and about how discrimination was magnified on Chinese women because of their gender as well as their race. Lee also continued to advocate for women's suffrage well after the passage of the 19th Amendment. The amendment got rid of gender-based disenfranchisement, sure, but only for white women. Lee recognized that the suffrage movement for women would never be complete until all women could cast their ballots. In her words, the feminist movement is the application of democracy to women, and she meant every woman. One important lesson we can take from her story is this: when can we truly say that women's suffrage is over? This next story is about another suffragette who grappled with similar questions, even writing about intersectional theory almost a century before the term even existed. Her name was Dr. Mary Church Terrell. A prominent suffragist and co-founder of the NAACP, Mary Church Terrell was born in the 1860s in Tennessee. Growing up, Terrell, a black woman, felt firsthand the brunt of the noxious rise in racism and discrimination during the 1880s. The 1880s to 1920s marked a period of racially motivated disenfranchisement in the form of racist pieces of legislation such as the Grandfather Clause and poll taxes. A firm believer in equal opportunity for everyone, this didn't sit well with Terrell. After going to Oberlin College and becoming a teacher, as one of the first black women to do so, Terrell dove headfirst into the civil rights movement, originally through anti-lynching campaigns. From there, she threw herself into community action, advocacy, and education, which she believed had the power to change the racist and sexist institutions of her country. She wrote nonstop, spoke nonstop, protested, co-founded the NACW, a black women's suffrage organization. Rapidly, she rose to a national advocate for black suffrage, women's suffrage, and had a deeply personal understanding of how the two intersected. She called it the double cross. Sound familiar? Like Dr. Lee, Mary Church Terrell never stopped advocating for women's suffrage, long after most of the original suffrage movement had checked it off their list and disappeared. In 1920, after the passage of the 19th Amendment, Church Terrell addressed the mostly white National Women's Party with these words: "Black women in a large section of this country are still deprived of their right to citizenship." She implored the party to continue fighting for women's suffrage because the 19th Amendment didn't enfranchise them all. Mary Church Terrell recognized that neither her job in suffrage nor anyone else's was done. So shouldn't we? Through these stories, we learned that intersectionality is not new. It has been a core aspect of American feminism since the very beginning. We also learned that not all voting discrimination against women ended at the 19th Amendment. The amendment didn't magically secure voting rights for all women, especially not for women of color. Even the original fight of women's suffrage isn't really over today. According to the Center for American Progress, many women of color are still barred from the polls through rampant intimidation and voter suppression tactics, denial of citizenship based on ancestry or immigrant status, as well as blatant racial discrimination. See? This is practically paraphrased from Mary Church Terrell, and she was writing about this subject a century before we were all born. The legacies of these brave, upstanding women are telling us that our work for equality isn't done yet, because American women don't have the right to vote until all American women can. Thank you.
There were once two brothers, the one rich and the other poor. The rich one, however, gave nothing to his poor brother, and the poor one made a scanty living trading in corn, and often did so badly that he could not provide bread for his wife or kids. In this classic grim tale, a poor farmer stumbles across a magical mountain. What fate might befall him? And if you came across a magical mountain, as we all have, would you let common sense prevail, or would you lose your head over greed? This is Simile Mountain by the Brothers Grimm. One day, as he was wheeling his barrow through the forest, he came across a great, bare, naked-looking mountain, and he just stared at it with amazement, when suddenly 12 great wild men started coming towards him. Fearing that they were robbers, he pushed his barrow into the thicket, he climbed up a tree, and waited to see what would happen. The wild men, however, went up to the mountain and said, "Semsy Mountain, open!" And the mountain had opened. The 12 stepped inside, and after a short while, they came back, carrying heavy sacks on their shoulders. And when they were once more in the daylight, they said, "Semsy Mountain, shut thyself." And the mountain shut, and the 12 went off. Once they were quite outside, the poor man got down from the tree and was curious to know what was in this mountain. So he went up to it and said, Semsi Mountain, open? And the mountain had opened to him as well. He crept inside, and inside was a cavern full of gold and silver. There was piles of pearls and sparkling jewels heaped up like corn. The poor man hardly knew what to do with himself, but he at least took some of the gold for himself. Once he was done, he stepped out the mountain and said, Semsi Mountain, shut thyself. And the mountain shut, and then took his veil and left. And now, he had no more cause for anxiety. He was able to provide bread for his wife and kids, and even add wine into the bargain. He lived joyously, righteously. He gave to the poor and did good to all, until the money came to an end. So he went to his brother, borrowed a bushel that held the measure, and collected himself some more gold, but left the most precious things behind. When, for the third time, he was again given the measure by his brother, the rich man, however, had long been envious of his brother's possessions and of the handsome way of living which he set on foot, and couldn't understand from whence these riches had came or what his brother even wanted with the measure. Then he thought of a cunning trick. He covered the bottom of the measure with pitch, and when he got it back from his brother, he saw that there was a piece of money sticking to the bottom of it. He at once went to his brother to ask him, What hast thou been measuring in the bushel measure? Corn and barley, said the other. The rich man then showed him the piece of gold and demanded that if he did not tell the truth, he would accuse him before a court of justice. The poor man then told him everything, just as it had happened. The rich man then ordered his carriage to be made ready and set off, determined to use this opportunity better than his brother had done, and bring back with him quite different treasures. Once he arrived, he went up to the mountain and said, Semsi Mountain, open. And the mountain had opened. And once he was inside, he wasn't sure what to clutch at first. He at length loaded himself up with as many precious stones and jewels as he could carry. And when he wished to carry his burden outside, as his heart and soul were entirely full of the treasure, he forgot the name of the mountain. So he said, Semsi Mountain, open. But the mountain never opened and remained shut. Then he started to panic. But the more and more he thought about it, the more and more his thoughts twisted and confused themselves, and he no longer cared about his treasure. In the evening, the mountain had opened, but the 12 wild men came through. When they saw him, they laughed and said,
Bird, we have caught thee at last. Didst thou think we didn't notice thou hast been here twice? We cannot catch thee then, but this third time thou shalt not get out.
The poor brother then said, It was not I, it was my brother. But, begged for his life, say what he could, they cut his head off.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and secure the blessings of liberty, to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The Constitution is a living document. It is a crucible. Do you know what a crucible is? You see, a crucible is a boiling pot. That is one definition. But a crucible, it's also a severe test. A test of patience or belief. In the United States, women have always fought hard to be afforded the rights promised in our Constitution. As the 2024 election approaches, we continue to battle for control over our own bodies. Through this program, with selections by Amanda Gorman, Susan B. Anthony, and Heidi Schreck, I hope to inspire all of us to keep fighting, both for ourselves and for future generations of women. Today, everyone's eyes are on us as we rise, Today is the day women are paving the way, speaking our truth into power. In this hour, it is our duty to find the brave beauty in rooting for other women, so they too know that we are not victims. We are victors, the greatest predictors of progress. We press for change, a new dawn drawn into the open by women whose silence is broken.
Amendment 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. I would like to tell you about the most magical and mysterious amendment of them all. Amendment 9 means that just because a certain right is not listed in the Constitution, it doesn't mean you don't have that right. I mean, think about it. The Constitution doesn't tell you all the rights you have because it doesn't know. Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, when he talked about Amendment 9, he used the word penumbra. What is a penumbra? Well, here I am standing in the light, and there you are sitting in the darkness. And this space between, this shadowy space right here, this is penumbra. I think this is a helpful way to think about the Constitution, and also maybe about our lives. I mean, here we are, stuck between what we can see and what we can't. You're trapped in a penumbra. Amendment 14, Section 1. No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privilege of the right to vote to any of the male inhabitants of such state. So, the 14th Amendment is like a giant supercharged force protecting all of the human rights. I want to note that the 14th Amendment gave equal rights only to men. No women were given these rights. Even Lincoln was trapped in a penumbra on that one. This is the first time that the word male is explicitly written in the Constitution. So, whereas before there was a little room for interpretation, now it was explicit. We could not vote. Lincoln asked us to wait just a tiny bit longer to get the vote, just like 54 years longer. We don't fear the day she steps into the light because you're with her every step of the fight. So we encourage women who've always shown that when one woman stands up, she's never alone. Susan B. Anthony, it's your turn to speak. I stand before you for the alleged crime of having voted at the last presidential election. It shall be my work to prove to you that I simply exercised my citizens' rights, guaranteed to me and all United States citizens by the national Constitution. California Senator J.B. Sanford, your rebuttal? Suffrage is not a right. It is a privilege. Politics is no place for a woman. Consequently, the privilege should not be granted to her. Woman is woman. Let her be content with her lot. Miss Anthony, your response? The Constitution says we the people. It was we the people, not we the white male citizens, but we the whole people who form the Union. The only question left to be settled now is, are women persons? And I hardly believe any of our opponents will have the hardihood to say they are not. Being persons, then, women are citizens, and no state has the right to make any law that shall abridge their privileges. We all leap forward when one woman tries, when she defies her rallying cries, speaking the truth in this finest hour, that to their own power, every single woman is entitled. But it's how they empower others that makes women's voices so vital. Amendment 14, Section 3. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. The Due Process Clause is one of the most miraculous in our entire Constitution. It ensures the government cannot lock you up, take your stuff, or kill you, without good reason. It is also the heart of the 1973 Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade, a case that is all about penumbras. Justice Harry Blackmun used the Ninth Amendment to shine a light into the shadows of the Constitution, and he found there the right to privacy, and he argued that this gave a woman the right to decide what to do with her own body. Technically, he argued that a doctor and his patient have the right to privacy, so that he can decide what to do with her body. Maybe it's not helpful to think of the Constitution as a crucible,
in which we're all battling it out together, in which we have to go in front of a court of 9 people to negotiate for our basic human rights, which is what we have been doing for 230 years. Because if this is a battle, or even a negotiation, then the people who've always been in power in this country are always going to keep dominating and oppressing. June 24th, 2022. Dobbs decision. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. The Supreme Court leak, or should I say flood, anger courses through my veins, ignites a fire in my empty room. We have marched for less. We have cried for less. Yet together, we burn bright, light the path for our daughters. Never underestimate the power of a pissed off woman with nothing to lose. My mom says, when you are paralyzed with rage and despair, to think of a woman running along a beach with a dog. She says if you watch the dog, it keeps running back and forth and back and forth. So it seems like progress is constantly being undone. But if you watch the woman, you can see she's moving steadily forward and forward and forward. I hope.
Crayons. Who doesn't love crayons? I know I do. That crayon smell when you first open the box? Sent to my childhood. With those bright, vivid colors that look like M&Ms. Thank God they're not toxic. You see, I always thought that I had a loving and stable relationship with my crayons. Boy, was I wrong! The Day the Crayons Quit by Drew Daywell. One day, Duncan went out to take his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them. Hey, Duncan, it's me, Red Crayon. We need to talk. All this coloring of fire engines, apples, strawberries, and everything else that's red is taking a toll on me. I even have to work on holidays. I have to color all the Santas at Christmas and all the hearts on Valentine's Day. I need a rest. Your overworked friend, Red Crayon. Dear Duncan, I love that I'm your favorite color for grapes, dragons, and buy me the Dornasa. But if you don't start coloring inside the line soon, I'm going to completely lose it! Your very neat friend, Purple Crayon. Dear Duncan, you color with me, but why? I'm usually the same color as the page you're using me on. White! Does anyone even notice I'm there? Hello? Your friend, White Crayon? Hi, Duncan. I hate being used to draw the outline of things. Things that are colored by other colors, all of which think they're brighter than me. How about a black beach ball sometimes? Is that too much to ask? Asking for a friend. Black crayon.
Dear Duncan, as Green Crayon, I am writing for 2 reasons. One is to say, I love my job! Loads of crocodiles, trees, frogs, and avocados! The second reason I'm writing is for my friends, Yellow Crayon and Orange Crayon. They are currently fighting for the title, Official Color of the Sun. Please settle this soon because they're driving the rest of us crazy! Your very happy friend, Green Crayon.
Dear Duncan, Yellow Crayon here. I need you to tell Orange Crayon that I am the color of the sun. I have proof! Last Tuesday, you used me to color in the sun on your Happy Farms coloring book. Zoop. In case you've forgotten, it's on page 7. You can't miss it. Your pal and true color of the sun, Yellow Crayon. Dear Duncan, we both know that I am the color of the sun. As proof of my assertion, you used me to color in the sun not once, but twice. Check out the Monkey Island and Meet the Zookeeper pages of your Day at the Zoo coloring book. Orange, you glad I'm here? Your pal and real color of the sun, Orange Crayon.
Dear Duncan, it has been great being your favorite color this past year and the year before that. There's just one little problem. Me! I'm so short and stubby from being used all the time. I need a break. Your vertically challenged friend, Blue Crayon.
Duncan, okay, listen here, kid. You realize you haven't used me once in the past year? Is it because I'm a girl's color? Huh? Could you please use me to color in the occasional pink dinosaurs, monsters, or even cowboys? Goodness knows they can use a splash of color. Your unused friend, Pink Crayon. Hey Duncan, it's me, Peach Crayon. Why did you peel off my paper wrapping? Now I'm naked and too embarrassed to leave the box. I don't even have any underwear on. How would you like to go to school naked? I need some clothes. Help! Well, poor Duncan just wanted to color. And, of course, make his crayons happy. So he rolled up his sleeves and did his best work yet. A colorful landscape full of black beach balls, a yellow and orange sun, and pink dinosaurs.
The last few nights, he had had the most uncertain feelings about the sidewalk just around the corner here, moving in the starlight towards his house. The autumn leaves blew over the moonlit pavement in such a way as to make the girl who was moving there seem fixed to a sliding walk. The girl looked as if she might pull back in surprise, but instead stood regarding Montag with eyes so dark and shining and alive. In this day and age, knowledge and logic have taken a backseat to irrationality and digital distractions. The seemingly utopian world that fireman Guy Montag, who literally burns books, lives in serves as a striking parallel to our own. When one girl dares to challenge the status quo, will Montag's view of the world be shattered forever? Find out in Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. You must be the fireman. How Oddly you say that. Why, I'd have known it with my eyes shut. What, the smell of kerosene? My wife always complains. You never really wash it off completely. Kerosene is nothing but perfume to me. Do you mind if I walk back with you? I'm Clarice McClellan. Clarice, Guy Montag, come along. What are you doing out so late wandering around? How old are you? Well, I'm 17 and I'm crazy. My uncle says the two always go together. When people ask your age, he said, always say 17 and insane. Isn't this a nice time of night to walk? You know, I'm not afraid of you at all. So many people are afraid of firemen. I mean, but you're just a man after all. Do you mind if I ask, how long have you worked at being a fireman? Since I was 20, 10 years ago. Is it true that long ago, firemen used to put fires out instead of going to start them? You are an odd one. Haven't any respect. I don't mean to be insulting, it's just I love to watch people too much, I guess. You think too many things. I rarely watch the TV walls or go to fun parks, so I love to time your crazy thoughts, I guess. Ooh, bet I know something else you don't. There's dew on the grass in the morning. Oh, yeah, if you look, there's a man in the moon. He hadn't looked for a long time. They walked the rest of the way in silence. Hers thoughtful, his kind of clenching and uncomfortable silence in which he shot her accusing glances. And when they reached her house, all its lights were blazing. What's going on? Oh, just my mother and father and uncle sitting around, talking. It's like being a pedestrian, only rarer. Oh, did I tell you one time my uncle was arrested for being a pedestrian? Oh, we are most peculiar. But what do you talk about? Good night. Are you happy, Montag? Am I what? But she was gone, running in the moonlight. And her front door, click, shut gently. Rules. 1. Answer the alarm swiftly. 2. Start the fire quickly. 3. Burn everything. The engine slammed to a stop. They crashed to the front door and grabbed at a woman, though she was not running, she was not trying to escape. She was only sitting, weaving from side to side, her eyes fixed on the nothingness of the wall. Play the man, Master Ridley, we shall this day light such a candle by God's grace in England, as I trust shall never be put out. How inconvenient. Always before it had been like snuffing a candle. The police went first and adhesive taped the victim's mouth and bandaged them off into their glittering beetle cars, so when you arrived, you would find only an empty house. You were hurting only things, and since things couldn't really be hurt, things don't scream or cry or whimper, as this woman might begin to scream or cry or whimper later, there was nothing to tease your conscience. But now, tonight, this woman was spoiling the ritual. She made the empty rooms roar with accusation and shake down a fine dust of guilt. It was neither cricket nor correct. She shouldn't be here, on top of everything. Don't just stand there, Montag, said Beatty, the fire chief. Kerosene! You're not going to leave her here. We're due back at the house. Besides, these fanatics always try suicide. The pattern's familiar. You can come with me then. No. Thank you anyway. And the woman opened the fingers of one hand slightly, and in the palm of the hand was a single slender object. And the woman reached out with contempt to them all and struck the match against the railing. The next day, the rain was thinning away, and Clarice was walking in the center of the sidewalk with her head up and a few drops falling on her face. I am still crazy. The rain feels good. It even tastes good. What you got there? Why, I guess it's the last of the dandelions this year. Have you ever heard of rubbing it under your chin? If it rubs off, it means you're in love. Look. Oh, what a shame. You're not in love with anyone. Yes, I am. I am very much in love with my wife, Mildred. I am. Oh, You're peculiar yourself, Mr. Montag. Sometimes I even forget you're a fireman. How did it start? How did you pick your work? You're not like the others. I've seen a few. I know. You're one of the few who put up with me. That's why I just think it's so strange. You're a fireman. It just doesn't really seem right for you somehow. He felt his body divide itself into a hotness and a coldness, a softness and a hardness, a trembling and not trembling. The two halves grinding upon one another, and then she ran off and left him standing there in the rain. And only after a long time did he move. And then, very slowly, he tilted his head back in the rain, just for a few moments, and opened his mouth. He felt his smile slide away, melt, fall down and over on itself like a tallow skin, like the stuff of a fantastic candle, burning too long and now collapsing and blown out. He was not happy. He was not happy. He recognized this as the true state of affairs. He had worn his happiness like a mask, and the girl had run off across the lawn with the mask, and there was no way going to knock on her door and ask for it back. Montag was cut in half. He felt his chest chopped down and split apart. One drop of Wayne Clarice, another drop Mildred, a third, the uncle a fourth. The fire, one Clarice, two Mildred, three, Uncle four. Fire, rain, the storm, the uncle laughing, thunder falling downstairs, the whole world pouring down, the fire gushing up in a volcano, all rushing down in a spouting roar and rivering stream toward morning. I don't know anything anymore.
Hello, welcome to G&G News Network. I'm Gruber.
And I'm Grover.
And this week, we're talking about the upcoming debate, Godzilla or Kong.
And we all know who the real person that should be elected is.
I know, right?
It's obviously Kong.
Godzilla.
Wait, you're saying, and that in the upcoming presidential elections, you want Godzilla to be elected?
Well, duh. Who else would you want for the leader of our nation?
Kong?
Godzilla.
Okay, well, why do you want Godzilla as our leader?
Why wouldn't I? I mean, he's a big, cool, sick, fire-breathing lizard guy.
He blew up Tokyo!
That's us, he got a little bit angry.
Millions of lives! Well, I mean,
We can sweep that under the rug.
okay, well, Kong, he has better policy. Kong is advocating for a one-party system.
One-party system!
Yeah. Why would you have a two-party system if you can have one-party system? I mean,
It's democracy.
Yeah, but it's
not that
bad democracy.
No.
Well, if you had a one-party system, you have more direction, right? In a two-party system, you have two people.
So you want a dictatorship?
No, more direction. You can still have different people be your prime minister or president. And you can, in a two-party system, you have people yelling at each other.
Yeah, but you have options. You're giving people choices, the ability to make a change.
Too many choices. See, the party is to say.
Oh, God.
In this traditional one-party system, you have a singular direction, and the people who enroll into that party are all unified with the same direction. You can get more work done, too.
No choices, no options, just one right way and nothing else.
It's good to have a right way for once, isn't it?
Not when one person is deciding that right way. With a multi-party system, I mean, everybody's vote can go into it.
Okay, but then you have everybody wanting different things, and nobody's happy. At least with the one-party system, mostly everybody's happy.
They're forced to be happy.
They're still happy.
Oh. I mean, you know what? I'm done with this for now. Let's just interview our two. Hold on. I forgot to mention at the beginning. We have two very special guests coming in.
We have our upcoming president,
Godzilla!
Oh,
Technically, we have both of them, but
well, one's better.
obviously. I'm gonna go get him right now.
Okay, sure. I'll go get Colin since you're gonna be better one first.
What?
Oh, Godzilla's first. All right, sure. You back from blowing up Tokyo?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's start off with why do you think you'd be a better president? than you?
I'm the best president. I make a great country. Roar!
You also destroy a great city.
Small potato.
How small are the people to you then? Do you really care about the needs of the people?
Yay high.
So, did their needs really matter to you?
No.
Are we hearing the same thing?
I think he's hearing things.
I'm hearing what you're saying.
I would have such a great rule as king.
What?
And no one will turn me into a burger.
You're running for president. People are saying. What? Who's turned you into burgers?
It is very sad.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think that you should make a one-party system.
But two parties will elect Godzilla.
Okay, why do you think two parties are better?
Because everybody loves me. And if not, I'll just destroy Tokyo again. And the US and the world.
Okay, so I think we've heard enough from you. If you want to leave now.
For Godzilla.
Well, how did that interview go?
That was terrible. Never bring them on the show again.
I'm gonna bring him next week just to spite you.
I quit.
Womp womp. Why don't you bring out our next interviewee?
Yeah.
Intervieweree?
I'll bring our future
Interviewer.
president, Kong, the person who's going to unify our country of kaijus.
So you say. Alright.
It's me, Kong. I'm here to unify our country.
And how do you plan on doing that?
Well, first of all, I'm going to make a one-party system.
Why?
Well, apart from the advantages already talked about, one-party system can also prevent
Hold on.
conflicts.
How do you know what we already talked about?
I'm in the back, listen. I can hear everything you say about me. Yeah. So I think having a one-party system, that can avoid conflict. And we've already been through one civil war, right? Why do we want another? If no one fights against each other, no one fights at all.
What would you do if you were president?
Well, apart from the one-party system, which I've already talked about, I would probably increase rights for my people.
The one Godzilla?
Yes,
Wait,
the one.
The one Kong. I would love Godzilla to be president.
I wouldn't. He literally just said he's gonna destroy the world.
If he doesn't get elected, obviously that's why we have to elect him. Come on, people!
He would probably just eat all the nuclear bombs. Is that why he's running? I think that's why he's running. He runs off of those. Okay, well, I think I'm gonna go now. I have important campaigns to run for.
I'm sure you do, buddy. It was
Okay.
nice having you on the show. Not.
Well,
See ya! Alright. I think that interview went fantastic.
oh, it did great. So you're gonna vote for him now?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll always have people like you in this country.
Oh boy. Well, we'd better end this before something goes wrong in the studio.
Yeah, I think they're gonna cancel us.
I think we've already been canceled, 8 seasons ago. It's a wonder we're on any air.
Well, I'm gonna keep voting for that president until he's the only president.
You need a nap. This is G&G News Network signing off.
I'm Grover.
And I'm Gruber. We'll see you at the polls.
This is hidden. I was walking down the block the other day, in Birmingham to be specific. I saw this cute couple. The girl had on a pink shirt and a white crop top. had her hair done up with a pink bow. The guy was rocking a middle part, wearing some jeans and a white tank top with a tasteful button up over it. They had matching blazers. I saw them coming out of the sushi restaurant I sometimes go to. I didn't think anything of it, thought they looked cute and kept going. But then I was walking down that same street another day and I saw them come out of that same restaurant, but this time they had matching Air Forces on. Then another day matching Tims. Then Jordan 1s. I thought it was weird, you know, how they always match shoes and went to that same sushi place so often. But that's all just weird, nothing more. I thought they were slightly weird and then just kept walking. Then one day I decided to go into the sushi place in Birmingham. It was all so familiar. The menu was the same. The workers were all the same. One of them even remembered me. He mentioned how much older I looked, how much taller I'd gotten. Everything was just as I remembered it. Except one thing was new. I saw that cute couple. It was the first time I had seen them in the restaurant, like actually in it, not just walking out. I immediately looked down at their feet to see what shoes they were wearing, what the match was today. But today they weren't matching. Or I guess they kind of were. Just instead of shoes on their feet, there were bandages. Bandages covering wounds too wide and deep to heal. And these weren't fresh wounds either. They were wounds left untreated for weeks, maybe even months. They were festering wounds that were starting to infect the rest of the bodies, killing them both, killing them together. And they were sitting there trying to cover each other's wounds with more bandages. The more they tried to help each other, the more the movement slipped off their own bandages. I thought about going to help, but I didn't. I ran out of that sushi restaurant after seeing those wounds. I never saw that couple again. Looking back, I wish I had asked what happened to their feet and if they needed me to get them to a hospital, maybe get some treatment instead of just bandages. I guess that doesn't matter. But now that I'm thinking about this couple and their shoes again, I have started to wonder. I wonder if they were visible. The wounds, I mean. I wonder if they were visible from the start back then, even when they only saw the two of them with their shoes on. When I only ever saw that cute couple walking out of the sushi restaurant. Cute, matching shoes on. Back when I only ever thought they were slightly weird. Nothing more. And then I have a second one. This is titled Jealousy. Another boy asked her out today. She told me because she wanted me to know, and I love her for that. And obviously it didn't make me mad that she told me. In the moment, it didn't even make me mad that he asked her. She told me, she said no, and that she has no feelings for him, and I trust her, I know that's true. Honestly, I didn't think about it again until she was talking about her prom, king and queen. She was running for queen, and he was running for king. And I know this is childish, but I hate that. And of course I don't hate her, or the fact that she's running. I don't even hate him, or the fact that he's running. I hate the fact that if they both win, it's the satisfaction of knowing what it's like to be with her. Even if it's for a moment. Just a couple minutes while the school hands out fake crowns, I still hate it. And I know it's childish, but I hate that even for a second he gets to feel a slight fraction of what I do when I'm with her. Because he doesn't deserve to spend that kind of second with her when he doesn't know what it's like for every minute with her to feel like a second. And every second away, an hour. And I didn't mean for this poem to turn from a poem about jealousy into one about love, but I think it had to. Because those two things go hand in hand. Or at least I think they do. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. It's probably just me being jealous. I'm sorry. I love you.
136 days before. The week before I left to go to boarding school in Alabama, I found my words were, I go to seek a great perhaps. Culver Creek Preparatory School. I thought of the things that might happen and the people I might meet. I was after a great perhaps. Meet Miles Pudge Halter, as he and his friends navigate the labyrinth of human suffering and ultimately face a tragedy that forces them to confront the meaning of life. In Looking for Alaska by John Green. 128 days before. My roommate Chip Martin arrived with the stink of stale cigarette smoke. I know a lot of people's last words, Chip. He walked out of the room, explaining to me that Alaska had cigarettes, but I barely heard him because a girl was talking over the colonel, loud and fast. Alaska Young. Okay, Mr. Famous Last Words Boy. The general in his labyrinth, Simon Bolivar. In the book, his last words are, damn it, how will I ever get out of this labyrinth? The mystery, is the labyrinth living or dying? Which is he trying to escape? I have to find Takumi. Have you seen him? I had no idea who Takumi was, so I just shook my head. 100 days before. On my 7th birthday, my present was that I got to pick my own name. So I looked at my dad's globe, and Alaska was big and damn far away from Alabama. Just like I wanted to be. You spend your whole life stuck in the labyrinth thinking about how you'll get out of it, but you never do. Sometimes I don't get you. You never get me. That's the whole point. I wasn't sure whether I liked her, and I doubted whether I could trust her, but I cared at least enough to try and find out. 84 days before. It's not life or death, the labyrinth, it's suffering. Bolivar was talking about the pain, not about the living or dying. How do you get out of the labyrinth of suffering? There's always suffering, Pudge. I turned to her. She smiled, then put a finger to my lips. Don't ruin it. So I walked back to my room thinking I was gawky and she was gorgeous, and that if people were rain, I was drizzle and she was a hurricane. 44 days before. I try not to be scared, but I still ruin everything. It's okay. I didn't even know what she was talking about anymore. Don't you know who you love, Pudge? You love the girl who makes you laugh. You don't love the crazy, sullen bitch. And there was something to that, truth be told. The day before, I wanted to like booze more than I actually did. We passed around the bottle until I could feel it in my stomach, sour and warm. Best day, worst day. We're all gonna puke if we don't slow it down. Best day of my life was January 9th, 1997. My mom took us to the zoo on a class trip. Best day ever, end of story. Your turn, Colonel. That's the best day of your whole life? Lame. Best day of my life is the day I bought my mom a huge fucking house. Worst day, your turn. The day after my mom took me to the zoo, it was a Friday. I had homework in my room so I could watch TV later. Then she screamed. And I ran out and she was lying on the floor, holding her head, jerking. I just started crying until finally I thought she'd fallen asleep. So I just sat there on the floor with her until my dad got home an hour later. By then she was plenty dead. Aneurysm. First day. When? She must have come to feel so powerless, so she became scared. Scared by her inaction to perpetual action. Scared of being paralyzed by fear. I have to get out of here. I forgot. God, how many times can I fuck up? We did not say, don't drive. You're drunk. We aren't letting you in that car when you're upset. Anything, everything can wait. The day after. Last night, Alaska Young was in a terrible accident, and she was killed on I-65. There were white flowers on her passenger seat. People do not just die. That night, I let her go because she told me to. It was that simple. And that's stupid. Obviously, you don't let someone drive drunk and pissed off. And Christ, Miles, what the hell is wrong with you? I know so many last words. I will never know hers. 6 days after, I felt the unfairness of it. Of loving someone who might have loved you back but can't due to deadness. I leaned my forehead against the casket and felt the colonel's hands on my shoulders. For a few moments, it was just the three of us. 3 bodies and 2 people. She wasn't even a person anymore, just flesh rotting. But I loved her, present tense. 7 days after. The general in his labyrinth. A crisp blue arrow led from how will I ever get out of this labyrinth to a margin note, written in a loop-heavy cursive, straight and fast. 9 days after. She's driving along and sees the end to her labyrinthine mystery is staring her right in the face, and she just does it, straight and fast. 14 days after. Warning signs of suicide. Alaska displayed, this is only making me hate her. And I don't want to hate her. And what's the point if that's all it's making me do? 20 days after. You can't just make me different and then leave because I was fine before Alaska. I was fine with last words and school friends, and you can't just make me different and then die. 51 days after. The colonel and I weren't the only ones who cared about Alaska. 114 days after. They found Takumi sitting on the couch. January 9th. Alaska's mom took her to the zoo. 136 days after. I was thinking that it was alright not to know quite where Alaska was. Found a note from Takumi. She told me that her mother was dead 8 years that day, and she always put flowers on her mother's grave, but she forgot. That's how I knew about January 10th. I thought for a long time that the way out of the labyrinth was to pretend it did not exist. Perhaps. I still believe in one in spite of having lost her. I would never know her well enough to know her thoughts in those last minutes, but the not knowing would not keep me from caring, and I would always love Alaska Young. So I know she forgives me, just as I forgive her. Thomas Edison's last words were, "It's very beautiful out there." I don't know where there is, but I believe it's somewhere, and I hope it's beautiful.
In November of last year, I had just gone to one of the best football games of my life. The last game of the University of Michigan football regular season, to be specific. With 32 seconds left in the fourth quarter, Michigan intercepted Ohio State's pass and gained possession, securing victory for the 3rd year in a row. Michigan fans rushed the field at the Big House, and people were discussing the outcome nationwide. Michigan had won against The Ohio State University, their biggest rival, 30-24, sending them to the Big Ten Championship, which they won too, by the way. This was a special game and an extraordinary victory, with a history spanning over a century. It's no wonder these two teams are talked about in conjunction. But why do people care, and what caused such a spectacular reaction? Today, I'll illustrate how rivalries happen, their overall effects, and the properties of a great college football rivalry. To start, let's get on the same page with our definitions. Cambridge Dictionary defines a rivalry as a situation in which people, businesses, etc. compete with each other for the same thing. Regardless of sector, most if not all rivalries are long-standing. Within these are two types of rivalries, individual and collective. An individual rivalry is between specific people, whereas a collective one is between groups of individuals. A major contributor to the cultural distinction between these two is how much they affect the general public, those who are not the rivals themselves. There's a big chance at least one of you in this room currently participates in a collective rivalry, so we'll be focusing on those. Regardless of sector or type of rivalry, they can influence even the smallest of actions. Having a community to identify with has a huge impact, both for yourself and the community you're a part of. It can overall benefit your own convictions and the way you present them. Gavin J. Kilduff, professor of management and organizations at NYU Stern, says unlike other competitions, rivalry occurs between people who already know each other, and who take their history of past interactions into account. For rivals, the psychological stakes are more important than any prizes or titles. In addition, people thinking about their rivals reported a bigger boost in their performance, feeling more evenly matched and more motivated. This is why participating in rivalry, even if you are not personally responsible for the outcome, can boost morale and overall make you feel better. You feel as though you have a role in the outcome of a scenario. You're left with a feeling of community, a feeling of belonging. Regardless of if you are the rival or are choosing a side in a rivalry, your engagement can positively influence both sides' performance and motivation. These ideas about rivalries in general are put on full display in one specific sector: sports. In sports, you're either a winner or a loser. This black and white nature of rankings, single game outcomes, and championships creates grounds for the perfect stir. In addition, the popularity of sports, specifically American football, basketball, and hockey, creates more opportunities for this involvement. College sports specifically are filled to the brim with pride and school spirit, and in football, one of the most nationally broadcasted sports in the United States, this pride plays an even bigger role. No rivalry, that's no with a K, has already done the work picking apart the variables and categorizing them. There's 10 main qualities divided up into 3 overarching categories: conflict conditions, strong similarity, and deep difference. Starting with the first category, conflict conditions, the Michigan and Ohio State rivalry I talked about in the beginning, remember that, is perfect to exemplify this. Born firstly out of proximity and intensified by the Snow Bowl in 1950 and the 10-Year War from 1969 to 1978, it showcases how conspicuous moments and characters can influence relations between teams. The 10-Year War was especially filled with these. Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes, then head coaches for Michigan and Ohio State respectively, still drive conflict and influence success for both teams today. With the two consistently holding top spots in the Big Ten Conference, they compete frequently, and their meetings almost always end in a close and competitive game. I should know, I was there. The second category, strong similarity, is illustrated best by in-state rivalries, especially if the two teams are in the same conference. The rivalry between Alabama and Auburn checks all of these boxes. Being only 160 miles away from each other, fans come in contact often, which can spark more tensions. Partly due to this close proximity, they're both in the same conference, the SEC, which is known for intense fans and unrelenting competition, and a little bit of cheating, but you didn't hear that one from me. This competition is especially prominent when recruiting. In the case of Alabama and Auburn, being in the same state can clash and create desperation for recruits. Lastly, the third category, deep difference, is seen intensely in the rivalry between Oklahoma and Texas. While this category isn't typically seen on its own or as the main driving force of a rivalry, these two teams are an exception. They both feel as though they're victims of discrimination by authority, and they have some of the highest penalties per game in college football, both with around 7. This creates a lot of drama by reversing, challenging, debating, and most importantly, blaming referees' calls. These rivalries, among others, benefit the sport greatly. Whether it's through fan culture, in-game performance, or community, it's undeniable that these effects boast a net positive for sports as a whole. The effect of rivalry is seen everywhere. You can't watch College Game Day without seeing mention of what these rivals and their fans are doing. This drive to succeed and overcome is ultimately what sent the University of Michigan to the Rose Bowl, which they won, and lastly, the College Football National Championship, which they also won. It all leads back to rivalry, that one game that could have changed everything, what you prepared for, what you strived to overcome, and what you eventually overcame. Not only did I go to the Michigan-Ohio State game, but I went to the Rose Bowl too. I think that moment of being in such a historic stadium surrounded by 96,000 other people just as invested in the outcome is one of my favorite memories of all time. It's the history, struggle, and eventual victory of the season that made it so special. I strongly doubt Michigan's national title would mean as much to so many fans if it wasn't for these characteristics and motivation that rivalry adds to the game. And that's about the only thing I can thank Ohio State for. But it's not just about wins or losses or even national championships. It's about the memories, stories, and the people we're brought closer to throughout the season. I'll never forget when my dad turned to me after we won the Rose Bowl game in overtime, and we just cheered with tears in our eyes. It's these moments that count, regardless of the outcome. And I think this says much more about a broader aspect of fandom culture and engagement. You can never fight for something without fighting against another. Whether this takes form in sports or not, the idea still lives on and permeates every single passion and ideal we have. It's for this reason that people do care, regardless of how silly or dramatic it can look to people on the outside. When you really, really care about something, there's no telling where this motivation will take you, maybe even to a national championship. Thank you, and go Blue.
What do you see? Wait, stand close. You've got to get close. Let it work on you. Closer. Lean into it. Engage with it. Now, what do you see? Be specific. No, be exact. Be exact but sensitive, you understand? Be a human being for once in your life. These pictures deserve compassion. They quicken only if the empathetic viewer will let them. That is what they cry out for. That is why they were created. That is what they deserve. Now, what do you see? Red? But do you like it? Of course you like it. How can you not like it? But what separates what I like from what I respect, what I deem worthy, what has, listen to me now, significance? I'm painting a series of murals now. They're for a restaurant. $35,000 they're paying me. No other painter comes close. All my life, I wanted just this. A place where the viewer could live in contemplation with the work and give it some of the same attention and care that I gave it. Like a place of communion, like a chapel. But it's a restaurant. No, I will make it a temple. Marcus Rothkowitz was one of the most famous painters who had just received the biggest art commission since the Sistine Chapel. But as his fame grew, his relevancy declined, and he found himself a commodity instead of a creator. His new assistant, Ken, comes to represent the new wave of artists, and is a stark reminder that time is fleeting and relevance is temporary. Red by John Logan. Picasso, I thank for teaching me that movement is everything. That man, though now a charlatan signing menus for money, that man at his best understood the workings of time. Tragic, really, to grow superfluous in one's own lifetime. We destroyed Cubism. We stomped it to death. Nobody can paint a Cubist picture today. You take pride in that? Stomping Cubism to death? The child must banish the father, respect him, but kill him. And enjoy it? Doesn't matter, just be audacious and do it. You know, Matisse's painting the Red Studio. I would spend hours looking at it, just letting it work, allowing it to move. The more I looked at it, the more it pulsated around me, such energetic blocks of color, such emotion. I can't look at it now. Even in that painting, it's there. Black. The thing, black. There is only one thing I fear in life, my friend. One day the black will swallow the red. So, in your paintings, the bright colors are your passion, your will to survive, your life force. But if black swallows those bright colors, then you lose that excess and extravagance? Are you really scared of black? Because it's kind of sentimental to equate black with death. Sort of not honest. In reality, we both know black's just a tool, it has no effect. Seeing it as malevolent is a weird sort of chromatic anthropomorphizing. Well, what do you see? What do you see? The color. It doesn't matter. No, tell me, what do you see? White. White like the snow. Outside the room where my parents died. See, what about equating white with death, like snow? Maybe you should use your own life, why not, unless you're scared of it. I'm not scared, it's just not all art has to be self-indulgent. Besides, at least equating white with death isn't so predictable. Come on, a painter gets older, he's losing relevance, he's saying goodbye, and the color black starts to infuse his work. It's not true. Look at Matisse. His last works were nothing but great shocks of primary color. Matisse, the dying hero. Jackson Pollock, the beautiful doomed youth. You insult these men by reducing them to your own adolescent stereotypes. Don't think that you have captured them. They are beyond you. Spend a lifetime with them and you might get a moment of pain, of insight into their pain. Until then, allow them their grandeur in silence. Silence is so accurate. How was the gallery? Those prosaic insects, those counter-jumping R&B sons of bitches. These are the same goddamn walls where I hang. My galleries, my walls. Polluted now beyond sanitation, choked with garbage like the East River. The same sacred space of de Kooning and Motherwell and Smith and Newman and Pollock and you young artists start to murder me. Shouldn't only be popular. Of course I want things to be pretty. When someone tells me one of my pictures is beautiful, I want to vomit. I'm here to stop your heart. I'm here to make you think. I'm not here to make pretty pictures. So said the cubist the second before you stomped him to death. Tragic, really, to grow superfluous in one's own lifetime. The child must banish the father, respect him, but kill him. Isn't that what you said? And now your time has come and you don't want to go. Well, exit stage left, Rothko. Don't worry. You can always sign menus for money. How dare you? I am creating something immortal, not comic books or soup cans. You don't understand. You're an employee. This is about me. Everything is about me. If you don't like that, leave. Christ almighty, try working for you for a living. The talking. Jesus Christ, don't he ever shut up? Titanic self-absorption of the man. And the pretension. I can't imagine any other painter in the history of art ever tried so hard to be significant. You know, not everything has to be so goddamn important all the time. Not everyone wants a painting that's gonna rip your guts out and expose your soul. Not everyone wants art that actually hurts. Sometimes you just want a fucking still life, or a landscape, or a soup can, or a comic book, which you might actually understand if you ever left this goddamn hermetically sealed submarine here with all the windows closed and no natural light, because natural light isn't good enough for you. You say you spend your life in search of real human beings, people who can look at your work with compassion, but in your heart, you no longer believe those people exist. So black swallows red. My friend, I don't think you'd recognize a real human being if he were standing right in front of you. Listen, kid, you don't need to spend any more time with me. I get it. You need to get into the thick of it. find your contemporaries, make your own world, shake your fist at them, talk their ear off, make them look, make something new. You're fired. And I'm sending the money back and I'm keeping the pictures. But before you go, what do you see?
Hey, Dad. My 5th birthday party is coming up, and this year I think I'm getting an ice cream cake. Do you like ice cream cake? Well, I'll save you a slice. Love you, Brandon. Hey, Dad. My 10th birthday party is next week, and the first thing that Mom said to me when I woke up this morning was, "Dang, you look just like your daddy." Maybe that's why my reflection is so unfamiliar sometimes. Anyways, I really hope you can make it to the party this year. I miss you a lot. Sincerely, Brandon. 1 out of every 4 kids in the US and approximately 18 million individuals live without a father in the home, including me. Never You, a poetry program with poems by Brandon Lee, Angeles Perez, and Poetic Moment. When's the last time you heard a poem about an absent father? And if you could recall the answer to that question easily, well, that's the problem. That's why many of us ran into the warm arms of poetry, why many of us found life within the boundaries of a page, of a space, of a blank array, to create the man that we wanted to know. Our storytelling started when we were old, but young in flesh, young at heart, and curious about why we were left. He could have been anything to distract us from what the ugly truth could be, that maybe he just didn't want me. So we wrote, and we wrote until lies became truths, and planks of wood became boats, became the tool that kept us afloat to survive within this beautiful lie. A child without a father is nothing but a refugee searching for a place to call home. Hey, Tyrone. I just turned 16 years old today, and about a week ago, I thought about inviting you to my birthday party because all the kids at school always ask if you're gonna make it, and I always end up telling them that you're out of town. Now, Mama told me stop lying so much, but what's a little half-truth when you've only ever known half your roots? But I'm tired of sticking up for you. I'm tired of all these sleepless nights. I'm tired of coming up with excuses for your absence. I'm tired of trying to earn the title of being called your son as if it wasn't my birthright. So you know what, Dad, or Tyrone, or whatever the hell you are? I'm done. Because all I ever wanted was for you to acknowledge my existence, but despite my persistence, I haven't even met resistance. Just absence. And I hate. In fact, I still want you here. This is my last letter to you. Goodbye. I'm still grieving from losing a dad, from losing an innocent self who died the day you left. My birthday. I'll never trust people again. I'll pretend. Sure, but deep down, your voice will ring out in my ears, reminding me of the day when I was too much and you couldn't handle it. You didn't want to. And by the time we have grown to adults, we look like Picasso's two faces with different perspectives. The face forward, confident detective of identity. The other looking to the sides, trying to figure out why me. Because although we are full with so much vibrancy, it's really the gray matters underneath, because that gray represents uncertainty. And that goes back to he. To him. To the man we call father, to the one responsible for bringing us into this place. And his responsibility is something that he chose to erase, which is why we erase lines and rhymes that don't fit. We are our fathers. We are using their gift to create something beautiful. Share it with the world. And then exit. Don't say this to discourage your efforts. No, I say this because I want to strengthen them so that you will keep trying when I don't respond, because it takes effort for me to break out of my shell and show some compassion when everything in me is screaming to never trust my dad ever again. Absent father, every day you're becoming more and more present in my life. Don't stop trying. Dear Tyrone, for 25 years I cried in the pillow sheets, wondering why you left me, wondering what I could have done to earn your love, or how I pushed you so far away. And as I ascended in age, my soul turned to rage because I wanted to move on, but I simply couldn't turn the page because somehow being angry with you still made me feel close to you. And despite our lack of history, Tyrone, I've come to learn that pain, like secrets, can only control you if you hold them within. So I've laid down these woes at the altar of Christ just so I can tell you this. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you so that I can finally be free, no longer shackled to my misery, because this situation is so much bigger than you and me. This right here, this generational healing, because Tyrone, for the first time ever, I can honestly say I love you. And I actually mean it. Sincerely, your son, Brandon.
fascinating topic of all time. Federal income taxes. How am I gonna make this fun? Well, it's up to you, hero. You're our last hope. Who is your foe? The Internal Revenue Service, also known as the IRS. Benjamin Franklin once said that there are only two absolutes in this world: death and taxes. And it's the job of the IRS to ensure that it stays that way. The Internal Revenue Service, unsurprisingly based on its name, handles the revenue or incoming stream of money of the federal government. According to a March 2024 Wall Street Journal article, 53.8% of this revenue comes from you and me through personal federal income tax. But how did we get here? Investopedia.com states that tax withholding first occurred to help finance the Civil War. In a Time magazine article, Joseph Thorndike of the Tax History Project states that this same tactic was used to help finance the Second World War, which permanently expanded the size of American government. So I hate to break it to you, but we're all stuck paying federal income taxes. What is our quest then? How do we become tax heroes? Well, journey with me as we discover the ancient withholding prophecies of the IRS. Then travel to the dark realms of magic tax forms. And finally, learn how to concoct your very own tax return potion in order to hopefully become a tax hero. At least for this year. Our villain, the IRS, puts your employer under an evil spell in order to purposefully take a portion of your income under the guise of withholding. This withholding is determined by tables that use wizardry in order to determine what your employer thinks you will owe the IRS over the course of the entire calendar year. So how does this evil spell work? Well, I'm sure many of us can remember the feeling of being at our first job orientation and being handed IRS Form W-4 and then panicking as we tried to fill it out. And for those of you who haven't, you will. First, Form W-4 asks for your personal information, including your filing status. Let's say I'm single. You know, open to a relationship, but currently a loner. I would select that I'm single or married filing separately, and my taxes would get withheld differently from someone who selected, say, married filing jointly. And for those who have multiple jobs, there's a whole worksheet to help you determine which withholding prophecy applies to you. And then on each of your paychecks, you can see exactly how much your employer withheld for federal income tax. And remember, this is an estimate based on a prophecy and will almost definitely differ from your actual tax payment at the end of the year. Now, at the end of the year, lots of money will have been withheld from your pay, but your quest isn't over. At the beginning of the next year, you'll get a few different forms in the mail or via email. These forms are ingredients for your final potion. Every employer that withheld estimated federal taxes from you during the year will send you one ingredient in the form of a W-2. This contains information about exactly how much money you earned during the year and how much was withheld overall. As you can see here, our tax hero earned over $23,000 last year and had over $1,000 withheld. Another ingredient you might receive is a Form 1099 INT from your bank or credit union. This contains information about how much interest you earned over the course of the year. That $226 is still taxable income after all. And finally, based on your individual character stats, that is your individual financial information, there are other ingredients you might receive, like the 1099 MISC if you're self-employed or a 1098-T if you're a college student. In any case, what is your final quest? Well, you must take all of these ingredients that you've received and mix them into one final potion, a U.S. individual income tax return, or Form 1040, which you can get from irs.gov or from your local library. It will first ask for your filing status. Remember my single filing status? Note the corresponding box to check right here. And then it's time to put our magic tax form ingredients to work. Notice line 1A is a box for our W-2 ingredient, earnings of over $23,000, and line 2B has a box for our 1099 INT ingredient, interest of $226. After we've mixed all our ingredients together, the resulting potion will reveal whether we've overpaid, underpaid, or paid just the right amount to the IRS through withholding. If you overpay, you're entitled to a tax refund. Congratulations! Or not really. I mean, this is your money that you're just getting back from the IRS. If you underpay, then unfortunately now you have to pay the IRS the difference. And if you pay just the right amount, then wow, you just achieved the impossible. But why would you have paid too little or too much through withholding? Well, remember, all that withholding, just an estimate, a mere prophecy. Now, even though the difficulty level of your quest increases with the complexity of your financial situation, you do have allies in your journey. Our first ally comes from an unlikely place, the IRS. I know, I said at the start that they're a foe in this quest, but they aren't void of mercy. If you go to irs.gov/W4 app, you're taken to a tool that helps you to determine exactly how you should fill out your W4 form to hopefully align your employer's prophecies with your final potion. It will ask you for information from your pay stubs and then reveal if you need to modify your W4 to stop over or underpaying. And the best part is you can submit a revised W4 to your employer at any time. After having underpaid her taxes by thousands of dollars last year, my forensics coach used the estimator and was pleased to receive a refund this year. Did you owe money this year? Visit irs.gov/W4 app and redeem your tax hero status. Additionally, there are plenty of tax software options to help you create your 1040 tax potion. Specifically, the IRS offers the IRS Free File Program, which works with 8 trusted partners to provide this option for free if your annual income is below $79,000. As a student who doesn't earn a lot of income, I personally use this for my own taxes. But maybe you're still one of the nearly 7 in 10 American taxpayers who, according to nerdwallet.com, have a concern about tax preparation. In that case, seek out a qualified accountant wizard to assist you in your quest. Let me let you in on a little secret. The IRS cannot be destroyed, but if we understand their wizardry, we can keep our villain under control. Whether it's discovering their ancient withholding prophecies, filling out or receiving their magic tax forms, or even concocting your very own tax return potion, you too can be a hero on your financial journey. Good luck.
Lastly, I'm going to say the word crip a lot, which is short for cripple, and even though I'm saying it, it remains a slur. So unless you're physically disabled, please don't. Thank you. Judge and timer ready?
Ready.
Hi, baby crip. I know you feel like a ton of bricks just hit you, and they did. But I'm your Crip Fairy Godmother, and I'm here to tell you what's going to happen. Disabled people are often thought of as objects of pity, diseases to be cured, something to be frightened of, or worse, something others fear becoming. Disabled people are the largest minority group in the world, which brings with it an ocean of individuality and experiences. Disability, and by extension being disabled, is neutral. It is a normal, natural, neutral part of human diversity. My disabilities do not make my life worth inherently less or more than yours. It just is. Disability Civility, a program by various authors. I am not here to inspire you. I am here to tell you that we have been sold the lie that disability is a bad thing.
Capital B, capital T. It's a bad thing. And to live with a disability makes you exceptional. It's not a bad thing, and it doesn't make you exceptional. What use is there in reading The Ugly Duckling to a child who has been made to feel ugly as a result of one disability or another, and struggles to find community as a result? The disability for many of us does not go away. There is no growing up into an objectively beautiful swan. Would Ogre Shrek and human Fiona have been shunned and whispered at? Fiona, the human, continually the subject of pitying looks. Good for you, dear. So brave of you to be with him when he looks like that. What a heartwarming story. It's so good of you to love them. The beast, Shrek, the ugly duckling, an eventual swan, the woman in the wheelchair, the man who wears the mask. I could never do that. And if you do, it means I don't have to. Pray. Try harder, drink more water, drink green tea, try harder. Do a detox, push through, try harder. Exercise, the only disability is a bad attitude, try harder. The end goal is the same. The happy ending somehow always involves a body that does exactly what it's supposed to do all of the time. And if you don't manage to get that body, it's somehow entirely your fault. Society has nothing to do with it. Superhero who's a superhero simply for getting up and getting coffee down the street. The disabled body is less. The disabled body must therefore be content with less. Look at you, getting coffee, getting groceries, going on trips in an airplane, pretending you're as able-bodied as the rest of us. It's all just so inspiring. They will forget you use a chair. They will forget you use a cane. They will forget you think in flowers. They will forget that you're deaf. And they will think they're doing you a favor by forgetting your disability. Because that means you get to be human, like them. They're gonna take your sick personally. I mean very personally. I mean you were in a wheelchair at them. I mean you did this, by which I mean you got disabled to get at them. Because they, the abled, are the center of the world. And when you continue to exist, you're gonna be a rip in the fabric of their universe. Crip time is vampire time. It's the time of late nights and unconscious days, of life schedules lived out of sync with the waking quotidian world. It means that sometimes the body confines us like a coffin, the boundary between life and death blurred, with no end in sight. We live out of time, watching others' lives continue like clockwork while we lurk in the shadows. And like vampires, we can look deceptively, painfully young, even while we age weary to our bones. I look 25, feel 85, and just want to live like the other 40-somethings I know. I want to be aligned, synchronous, part of the regular order of the world. Dear baby Crip, it's not all bad news. My body doesn't oppress me. My body is fun. But society, that can be incredibly oppressive. The honest to God truth is that I don't fantasize about miracle cures and redemption songs. I dream of ramps leading up to showers and houses and waterfalls, to haunted hayrides and carriages and job interviews and Capitol Hill. In my dreams, restaurant hostesses and flight attendants are not afraid. Doctors listen. In my dreams, I don't watch him walk. I watch him stop being hurt. It isn't fair. It isn't fair. It isn't fair. It isn't fair. It wasn't fair then, and it isn't fair now. It isn't fair when the disabled body is overlooked and forgotten because the princess or the prince is the one whose story everyone wants to follow. It isn't fair when the person with the visible difference gets cast as the villain in the story because that's the only place anyone can imagine they might fit. There are always going to be Crips. There are always going to be people in pain. It's just the nature of being a body. I love this body of mine that has lived a life. I love my back studded with ancient stars. I love the lunar curve of my hips. This body of mine that can hurt and get ill, that oozes cough, sweats, grows tired, old, and worn out. Living body, one solid link to secure this unending chain of bodies. I love this body, made of pure earth, seed, root, sap, flower, and fruit. I want to give you a poem like an adaptive device that will hold you just as good as your favorite cane. Bed sling, rescue ventilator, accessible toilet seat, crushed pocket, Xanax, blanket weight. Give you the words that will take meaning, make language build a word house to hold you, open-doored and firm-roofed. Steady tap, tap, thrum of your cane tip, the steady roll of the charged battery of your chair, your brain humming. You will learn every magic trick to shapeshift pain. You will drool, type, limp, and shake with joy. You will learn to move as slow and as weird as you want, and others will roll and limp with you in a wild pack of slowness. Beautiful baby Crip, I come to you in your dreams. There is so much nobody's gonna tell you for a while. Disability is adaptive, interconnected, tenacious, voracious, silent, raging, life-giving. We are Systemic War Battalion. We know shit they'll need to know. I want stories where people are not applauded for embracing difference, but instead reshape the world so that difference is the norm. I have nothing to prove to the world because the world has everything to prove to me. It is the world's responsibility to make space for my body, my words, my lopsided gait, our bodies, our words, our ways of moving through the world. Just start telling different stories about a body that might just look like mine and reshaping the world to fit them. There is no such thing as not disabled enough. There is no neutral body from which our bodies deviate. I am already enough. There is no need to be more.
All right, what is this? Seriously, an interrogation? A confession? Okay. Good science. Proof of what's true, of what's really going on. Which is the only question there is, really. What's going on? Scene 2. Which would indicate that this is a play. Which would indicate that I might know what's going on. I should explain. My wife is a writer. She's writing, I think, this. Am I right? Is that what we're doing? She says keep going. Okay, great. But where? Enter Nathan Wolfe, a scientist who finds himself thrown into acting out a play written by his wife. As she moves him through various scenes of his life, how will he come to reconcile scientific reasoning with the human experience? The Catastrophist by Lauren Gunderson. One data point right off the bat is that the men in my family don't tend to live past 40. My father survived his massive heart attack at 39, but just barely. He was in the hospital for weeks. Kids aren't allowed, and I was so furious because the rules were idiotic. I decided right then I was never going to be a doctor. Instant coffee. It's not good, but it's easy. And easy is good when you're recovering from a nearly fatal heart attack. I would take the mug to my dad, and he would tell me all the things he wished he got to tell his father, all the things he didn't get to say, all the things he did. I started to realize he was doing this not to mourn his own father, but to save me from the grief of not telling him the things I needed to while I still could. And it turns out I am a doctor, PhD in virology. Why study viruses? Because viruses are the coolest and most abundant life forms on the planet. It's not us and them. It's them and them and them. And then way down the line, there's us. The best science in history has started with the same thought experiment, asking a question no one else is asking, which again is always some version of what is really going on. So, are viruses alive? I get asked this a lot, and honestly, it's wordplay. The main argument that they're not rests on the fact that viruses depend on other life to survive. But don't we all? All life depends on other life. In 2000, I'm setting up a lab in rural parts of Cameroon with people who hunt wild animals. They agree to take regular samples of their blood and of the animals they kill. Fast forward to 2004, and I'm alone in a basement lab of the CDC, processing thousands of these samples. That might be proof of viruses jumping from animals to humans. Now, no one has ever seen a jump in progress before. That would be a 1 in a million kind of thing. Actually, it's 1 in 100, because I'm looking at the data, and one sample comes back positive, then another, and another. This is the proof. And suddenly, I become known for pandemics, a virus hunter. Because if you know where outbreaks come from, you can be prepared. Give me a catastrophe, and I will give you a plan. She says that's the title now. The Catastrophist, and it's February 2014, and we are pregnant. My wife would like to note we are not pregnant, she is. At week 20, we know the baby is a boy. And in April, I tell the head of the CDC to take this new outbreak seriously. I could tell it was going to be bad, and it was, in a lot of ways, because a month into the outbreak, I get a call from my dad, who tells me his recent stomach bug was not stomach and not a bug, and it was cancer. Pancreas. This is May. My wife, pregnant with our first child. My father just diagnosed with cancer. Keep going, she says. September 1st, late at night, I get a call. I get on a plane, I go straight to the hospital, I hold his hand. And he dies. I've never seen that before. That kind of evaporation. Burial. The Kaddish prayer. The closest my son and my father will get. There is no reason in this that they will never know one another. And if I believed in God, I'd tell him to fuck right off. Because every time I hold my son, I will think, my dad never got to do this even once. My father loved his faith, but I don't believe what he believed. And we never really talked about it. But he probably knew. Birth, death, right on top of each other. The science of sorrow. There isn't any. And things are good for a time. And then it feels like something is coming. No! I'm not ready yet. This is not where I'm supposed to be. Why are you doing this, Lauren? This is... My wife would like you to know she is equal parts terrified and mad as hell. She is writing this because I can't. Your heart is mine too, she says. I know. How does the catastrophist not plan for his own catastrophe? If I die, if something goes wrong, my little boy will not know me. I will leave him with nothing said. I will just leave. That is not science, but it's true. Good science. Keep going. Convince me. Keep going. My heart, I feel it. And hers, I hear hers too. And his, our son, and another, and all the things I didn't get to say. And all the things I did. And all the things I will say. And all the things I will. And all the things